my first book, The Wisdom of Your Face, has actually been translated into 8 languages around the world now. There's a psychiatrist in Turkey using it with his patients. There's people in virtually every country of the world putting this system to use, and that is wonderfully heartening for me. When Hay House asked me to write this second book for parents, grandparents, teachers, for anybody who has a child in their life, I thought, well, yeah, this really speaks to me, because in all my years of working with people, I've often, because I do consultations for individual people, but also for families, for couples. I have sometimes entire families coming to workshops where both parents come. If the children are old enough to come, they come as well. And it's always been kind of heart-wrenching for me when I see how a child is being totally misperceived. That a parent, I'm a parent. when my son was born, part of me just expected him to be kind of a little miniature replica of me, And I soon learned, as we all do who are parents, each child is different. Each child has their own personality, their own temperament, their own inner world. And I was always working to try to understand that better. I spent a lot of time researching Western child development science, not just my knowledge of Chinese face reading and Chinese medicine. And in Western child development, what they found is that the single most important predictor of your child's success and happiness in life is not how much you praise them, not how many times you say, I love you, although of course that's important, but the single most important predictor of anybody's success and happiness in life is how much they feel recognized and understood by their parents. And that's not always so easy to do. Thousands of years ago, Chinese face readers were the original therapists. They were the ones that people went to for guidance on career, on love, relationships, on their purpose in life. And the face readers would do what I do, read the messages on the face in order to determine, what kind of work will be fulfilling for you, what kind of relationships will bring you the most joy, what your purpose in life is. We all have a unique inner design, a unique purpose that we came here to fulfill, a specific kind of life to live. We're all born with that all bright and shiny. But soon after birth, we start receiving messages from parents, family, society, teachers, whoever we come in contact with, about who we're really supposed to be. That doesn't always match. It's not always in alignment with who we really are. And we just got to this planet when we're little children, and if someone's telling us we're supposed to be like this, or we're not really feeling like that, we don't know the rules. We think, okay, well, I guess that's the right way to be. The implicit message in that is, you will be loved if you're like that, not like this. So of course we do our best. And for all children, I see there's a point in childhood where the light starts to dim. Their light goes out, their spirit gets diminished. That's heartbreaking for me to see. I think that doesn't necessarily have to happen. That if as a parent you can recognize who your child really is inside, you can support them to be that special spirit, not something that you're projecting onto them, not some expectations, not some of your own hopes and dreams or assumptions that they're just like you. It's kind of a mystery raising a child. My book I equate it to, if you're a gardener and you go into the garden to grow some flowers, you buy your nasturtium seeds and you plant them in the ground, and then a few weeks later, nasturtiums come up. But what if you planted nasturtiums and hollyhocks bloomed? You'd be a little puzzled. Well, gardeners have it easy because the seed packet tells them pretty much what's going to grow there. But when we have a baby, that little child is a total mystery, and we soon figure out the physical care. We figure out how it needs to sleep and what it needs to eat and how to keep it healthy and keep it growing and developing. But the inner development, the inner spirit, can be a total mystery to us. And I think all parents struggle with that. In the short time that the book has been getting promoted and getting out there, in the radio interviews that I've done and media interviews, sometimes people call into programs, and it just touches my heart so much because you can hear the energy in the parents' voice, how much they care, how much they're yearning to really know if they're doing it right, if there's a little tweak they can make to love their child more, to support them better, to make them feel just more complete and loved in life. And I find that this information is so powerful for that. It really clears the mystery. What Chinese face reading basically did was they established that there are kind of like 5 basic archetypes, personality types, that we all have, but in different measures. And there's always one that's the strongest in who we are. It's kind of like our home base or the default setting in our computer. It's what we click back into. It's always where we start when we power up. That's who we are. It's what we wake up thinking about, breathing about as we go through the day. And that exists from birth. You know, it's interesting in psychological studies, this whole nature versus nurture thing, which I also researched as I was writing the book. A few decades ago, they did studies on temperament of babies. And you know, the babies are now accepted that babies have different temperaments. There's fussy babies, there's calm, quiet babies, there's hypersensitive babies. And in their studies, they believed that that was a temporary stage for the baby, and then it would learn to adjust and figure things out. And by the time that they were adolescents, they had pretty well just kind of figured out how to live life. But with the development now of technology, fMRIs, brain imaging things, they've been able to do brain studies on babies that, for instance, were defined as highly sensitive babies. Very fussy, very sensitive, hard to calm down. They interviewed them as adolescents, and they were poised, they were sociable, they were articulate, they seemed completely calm. And so they thought, well, okay, so they've learned to adjust, they're no longer hypersensitive. But when they ran the brain studies, when they did the fMRI, what they found was they were incredibly hypersensitive, every bit as much as they had been at birth. Who they were born as is who they were today. It's just they'd been able to create the facade of seeming to be fine. And when they were interviewed further, these kids said, yeah, you know, I can't sleep, I'm highly anxious, I'm very touchy, I'm very reactive, I'm nervous all the time, I can't calm down. Same thing as when they were babies. The thing about reading children's faces, though, is that when babies are born, of course, their faces aren't fully formed. They're not fully developed. But you can see things right off the bat in newborns' faces. There are differences and there are meanings to the messages on the face. And then as children develop and go through childhood, the features come in at different rates. The bones grow in, different features come at different times. There's some features like the chin and the brow bone, especially on boys, that don't really bloom until puberty because those are related to the levels of testosterone in the body. So in my work in researching this book, one of the things that I did was I interviewed families. I would interview each parent and I would interview their children if they were old enough to be interviewed. And certainly I got a lot of information out of talking with the children because I could read their faces as I was interviewing them and understand why they were saying the things that they were. But actually the most moving part for me of all the interviews was when I was wrapping up with the parents alone, because the last question that I would always ask them was, if you could send a message back in time to your own parents about the best way to raise you, what would that message be? And time again, I got some version of the same reply, which was, I just wish they'd trusted who I was. And that's the purpose of my work. That's the purpose of this book. Know who your child is.